Greetings and hello, my friends, to a new edition of PRLostGalaxy2014's Movie Rants, with this being the 13th movie rant in a row on the channel, presented by PRLostGalaxy2014's Facebook page. From what I can recall, I've been hearing a lot of people say that Jim in the Holograms movie is going to suck, and I have to admit, after watching the trailer and the trailer alone, and also looking up information on the film, whatever information, well, minimal as it is, I come to realize that this film is pretty much of a complete disservice to the franchise. Not to mention the animated cartoon that you watched back in the late 1980s, and as well as its toy line. And you know, I have to break it off to you. I just came very aware of Jim and the Holograms, not the movie, but the cartoon. Now, the first time I came across the cartoon was reruns on the Hub, because despite me being a 90s kid, I didn't grow up in the 1980s when I heard of G.I. Joe, Transformers, and such around that made, you know, knowing that the 1980s, well, the only best thing about that decade, from what I can recall from historians, was Saturday morning cartoons. But, you know, for the girls, though, aside from My Little Pony, you have Jim. So there's two Hasbro brands that kind of got scrutinized in today's world of pop culture. I mean, as much as I've had to witness the horror that was My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, what makes Jim and the Holograms' movie any different? And I just cannot break off why in the world, I mean, based on the trailer and based on what I've seen, who's playing these characters, who directed this film, albeit I am aware that John M. Chu, who directed G.I. Joe Retaliation, directed this film. So I'm betting this film is going to be as worse as, you know, I'm going to have to tell you now also. It's just, the thing is with Hasbro, with making movie versions of their popular franchises, you know they got roadkilled. Except for Transformers. That still remains strong, although it still gets a whole bunch of hate. But as for the Hasbro franchises people were like so-so about, or had none interest in at all, like G.I. Joe and Battleship, they both got roadkilled. G.I. Joe especially. Now, we have Jim and the Holograms. I have to tell you about this also as well, that I wasn't even a fan of Jim, and because, well, I respect its legacy as a 1980s cartoon and toy line, but I couldn't get into it. But now I'm thinking back at, you know, the cartoon. Now, how I stumbled it was 2 years ago when we had the Hub, you know, where they would show reruns of classic stuff alongside fucking My Little Pony Friendship is Magic and all. I did stumble across 2 years ago on the Hub watching reruns of the original Jim cartoon from the 80s. And I have to admit, the Jim cartoon, although after watching a few episodes or so, or watching the entire series, I have to admit, while also watching the original Transformers and G.I. Joe cartoons that came along, Jim still holds up to this day, because doing Jim, the original Jim cartoon, mixed science fiction with the soap opera-ish, you know, pop star, you know, feel to the series and its overall story, and that I really liked. I really like. I can't tell which character is my favorite after watching the original cartoon, but I think it has to do. I think it has to be the original character of Jerrica Benton, who also becomes Jem, however, but I technically have some to little interest into the cartoon. But however, after watching the cartoon, I respect its legacy. I respect where people are coming from with Jem, although it feels like, look, Jem and the Holograms hasn't been in the limelight for years, almost nearly roughly 29, 30 so years. And, well, it's been that long. Well, yet you have My Little Pony, G.I. Joe, and Transformers still reigning over along, but technically, you just... Yeah, I'm just very bummed out by hearing about the live action movie adaptation of Jem and the Holograms. And from what I've heard and from what I've seen from trailers and everything, and based on word of mouth, this movie is going to suck. Although for someone like me who didn't grow up in the 80s again, but in the 90s. But in the 90s, though, this is total disrespect of the source material. This movie doesn't deserve to be called Jem and the Holograms. This is more like Josie and the Pussycats 2.0, or more like Spice World, pretty much. Spice World 2, pretty much, than a Jem and the Holograms movie. And the characters of Jerrica and her crew, in this movie, they are depicting the characters as the usual what's part of the 2010s with teenagers and people like me at this young age is, where it's all about being on social media like Facebook, Instagram, and being on video sharing sites like YouTube, and also talking about putting stuff in hashtags and doing selfies and things, and then making videos that would make you YouTube famous and all of that. I guess that's pretty much what our generation... Well, actually, I'm part old school, so I have to... Sometimes old school people like me have to, keep up with the times, or don't keep up with the times at all. But I never really... Well, when I was a child, and when I seen reruns of Jem, or when I seen reruns of these classic cartoons that was from the 80s, early 90s and stuff, along with Transformers, I never watched reruns of Jem and the Holograms, despite that being an 80s cartoon, not a 90s thing. And also, not only that, it's targeted to little girls. So for a guy like me, so much for the brony fandom, where you have guys who are fans of My Little Pony, who have fans of My Little Pony. Who would have really thought that Jem and the Holograms, this movie, was going to be this effing bad? Who really thought this movie was going to be this bad? Well, actually, knowing that it already screams bad. And one thing, Hasbro just can never make a good damn movie with Hollywood. They just tendently keep ruining these franchises. Like, it's going to make profit out of these movies by just shit slamming these films. This film should have better off being an animated, CG animated film, like those crappy ass direct-to-DVD Barbie movies. That's what I'm thinking. Or any of those direct-to-DVD My Little Pony movies. Part of My Little Pony Generation 3. But this just doesn't deserve to be called Jem and the Holograms. And I have to admit, and based on other people's opinions, this movie is a total disgrace to Jem and the Holograms. And I really think it's really dumb to make a film based on this and making it so like Jem and the Holograms as like this is the Miley Cyrus, Lady Gaga Jem, because this is like Jem as Miley Cyrus with a blend of Lady Gaga, and this isn't who the character was. And when I do a podcast discussion in the very future on the Jem and the Holograms cartoon, and also talking about the toys and also its overall merchandise and legacy, I'll probably go ahead and do that. But I just need to take more time to familiarize myself with the source material, although I have to admit, again, when I stated that I wasn't a fan, or I never was a fan when that, despite it being a girls thing, a girls play thing back in the 80s and so forth, and then here in this day and age where it's targeted to both people of both genders now so much for friendship is magic again, you would really think that Jem and the Holograms, I mean, this doesn't feel nothing like the cartoon like everyone was talking about. Instead, I mean, look, you got big names like Molly Ringwald and Juliette Lewis in this film, along with these up-and-coming actresses playing the younger versions of Jerrica Benton, Kimber Benton, Aja, and such. But that's just this doesn't scream this doesn't scream the movie again. And why would you want to do a film based on a cartoon that 80s kids, mostly girls who grew up in the 1980s, were familiar to, and then you half-assed it by making us feel like this is a Hannah Montana, Lady Gaga, thing. And then also, look, back in the 80s, okay, I'm actually, as a 90s person, I'm going to speak this, but just speak it off. But the thing is, in the 1990s, the internet wasn't really that much of a thing until the 1990s. When in the 80s, there wasn't no internet till then, from what I can recall. And look, why would you make your version, this reimagining of Jem and the Holograms, make Jem a YouTube sensation? That was very off-putting based on the trailer. It's really stupid. It's really stupid. I can see if this was a Miley Cyrus biopic right now. I hate to keep poking on Miley Cyrus despite her, twerk shit from 2 years ago and up to this point. But this doesn't stays true to her original character. Her character wasn't a YouTube sensation. Back in the 80s, there was no damn YouTube. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. There was no Twitter. There was no Myspace. There was none of those websites that would make her a pop star, a famous pop star. Because in the original cartoon, Jem was a mysterious lead singer for her rock group Jem and the Holograms, and she was also under the name that was the manager, the owner and manager of Starlight Music, in which Jerrica adopts the persona of her being a mysterious, popular rock star with the help of a holographic computer known as Synergy, which was built around Jerrica's father to be the ultimate audio-visual entertainment synthesizer and has bequeathed to her after his death. Jerrica is able to command Synergy to project the Jem hologram over herself by means of the remote micro projectors in her earrings, thus disguising her features and clothing, enabling her to assume the Jem persona. While disguised as Jem, Jerrica is able to move freely without restrictions, and on several occasions, and other people have been in direct physical contact with her without disrupting the holographic projection. Jem, through the use of her earrings, is also able to project holograms around her and use this ability throughout the original series to avoid danger and provide special effects for the performances of her group. So I'm starting to think that this movie is going to avoid stuff that was part of her original character. And then also the rival bandits, the Stingers and the Misfits. Most likely, a lot of people are wondering, where is the Misfits? Where are they at in this film? All we get is freaking Molly Ringwald and Juliette Lewis in this movie. That's not going to fucking cut it. Then also, what about... Okay, look. For someone like me who just needs to get a little familiar with this classic cartoon, mostly targeted to little girls and you grown women who are now 30-something, I have to do more research on Jim and the Holograms before I do a full-on video. I guess I know I came off wrong, just like it did with that Christopher Lee video following his death 2 months ago, and someone called me I was a weeboo because I was messing up and knowing that I didn't do my fucking research before I did my fucking video here, and I know I messed up. Forgive me for my lack of a female audience to the angry, pissed off male audience right now watching this video talking about this movie. But this movie just is not going to cut it because Hasbro has, like I said earlier, Hasbro has not did a great film with their franchises. At least Transformers remains successful, but G.I. Joe and I was about to say Battlefield, which was an Electronic Arts video game property, Battleship has been flops by the audience, but yet they were money makers. But in terms of critical reception, it's just, you put, I mean, Hasbro, the thing is with you, with working on movies with Hollywood, you just cannot have I mean, I understand you want to translate your popular toy and cartoon and such franchises to the big screen a lot, but you're not going to be in the same vein as Warner Brothers and DC when they're bringing all their DC characters to the big screen, like outside of Batman and Superman, which have made countless movies in the others, or Marvel, where Marvel can actually get their characters right, except for a few characters that didn't have good movies at the time, like Daredevil and Elektra and the Fantastic Four. But you have to realize, Hasbro, you're not like Marvel or DC, hell, not even Disney for all of those. So stop trying to prove to your audience that you can make great movies of your respective well-known famous toy brands when knowing you suck at making movies of your product. I mean, at least you can get Transformers right, but even though if it wasn't for you guys thinking about having Michael Bay do these things, you know, do Transformers and such, you really have messed up. You just really have missed the mark. Well, where you really missed the mark at was when you announced a G.I. Joe movie adaptation when around the time of the 2007-2008 writer's strike, and when you guys thought about having Stephen Sommers direct the first G.I. Joe film, which albeit I still hate to this day now, 6 years later, you guys really missed the ball and missed the mark where you guys just put minimum effort in making these movies highly entertaining when knowing these movies are going to doom to fail. Even if they will make money, but in terms in the audience and critics' eyes, and including its respective fans, it's going to fail. It's going to fail hard. Look at what happened 3 summers ago, when you guys released Battleship, albeit that's also distributed by Universal Pictures, believe it or not. And now you guys are doing your second Hasbro Universal film collaboration on the Jim and the Holograms movie. And look what you guys just did with Jim and the Holograms now. You turned it into what was a science fiction soap opera, rock star like cartoon that a lot of girls in the 1980s loved when they were growing up, and turned it into this hipster, modern Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, Lady Gaga thing. You know, that doesn't resemble the original cartoon, and it hell does not resemble its overall legacy. And one of the most ambiguous things I hate about movies when you're doing reboots of familiar and existing franchises like Jim and the Holograms, why do you gotta go with this coming of age young actors shit approach? Why Hollywood? Why do you keep constantly making bullshit coming of age stories of existing franchises with their pre-existing characters? Why do you keep wanting to do that? For those who are fans of such shit like this, not me, because I never grew up with it back in the 80s. I was into Transformers until suddenly G.I. Joe, and you know. But why do you constantly keep going with this coming of age approach with the characters? Why couldn't you just pick actors that are like the same age as the characters were in the original cartoon? But albeit I don't even know how old the characters like Jim and Kimber were. So what am I supposed to know? I mean, how am I supposed to know about that? it makes no damn sense to me. It makes no damn sense to me that you guys got to do this and just totally ruin what made the original show and such work. It's just total asinine to see Hasbro put minimal effort into their films, because that's all Hasbro is good for. When you translate something, you know, that was popular of your toys and stuff and putting them in other media like movies or video games, you put all but so little minimal and to poor effort in making something special. You guys can do that with Transformers, but when you have these other secondhand Hasbro brands like G.I. Joe, Battleship, and Gem, you guys can totally ruin it. I can imagine you guys can do a live-action CG hybrid movie of My Little Pony or so right now, or Hungry Hungry Hippos, and you guys will totally ruin that. Or hell, what if you guys did a terrible live-action Nerf movie based on your little dart gun Super Soaker, like, you know, toy brand, and made a movie out of that where it doesn't even have a fucking story? So that would not make money and would totally get universally panned by critics and audiences. Because you see, Hasbro, as much as I love your products of Transformers, G.I. Joe, and whatever you have in your belt, you guys totally fail. You totally fail at making movies. You absolutely fail at making movies. And it's no joke. After, even what caught my attention was after Transformers was a huge success in 2007, and when I heard a G.I. Joe film adaptation was coming out, and when I seen trailers for Rise of Cobra, I thought Rise of Cobra was going to be very awesome, until I look back, here I am 6 years too late later, six years this time of month this year later, and find out that the movie sucked. And then when Retaliation came along, that just killed G.I. Joe for the worst. And then Battleship. Look at what you guys did with Battleship. You merged what made the classic board game, you know, famous, and mix it with battleships being attacked by alien robots from a distant galaxy where, and make it like Transformers meets Battleship, but it's more like Pacific Rim meets Battleship. Well, knowing, albeit Pacific Rim was out a year later, not a year before, so my mistakes in terms of research. But I'm just making an illustrated point. But when you guys did Battleship with Universal 3 years ago, that wasn't even fucking Battleship. I remember I used to play the Battleship board game. At least you only have to, you know, one side will be one player using some set of darts and battleships, the other would take the other half, and we would do this and take any hits like F1 or B3 or something like that. And then as soon as when you get your battleship being sunk by the other player, your battleships have been sunk, and then the game is over. But when you guys did Battleship again, that totally was like Transformers meets Pearl Harbor almost. Or any other movie like that. So, Hasbro, if you ain't gonna do movies with Hollywood the way you're supposed to, then how about you should tell these movie studios, Paramount and Universal, to revert the movie rights of Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Jim and the Holograms back to you, and open your full-on film studio, although you do have the name Hasbro Studios as a production company of yours. But how about Hasbro make your own movies without any accompanying ship with any film industry like Paramount, who does G.I. Joe and Transformers, and Universal, who just did Battleship and Jim and the Holograms. How about that? I also wanted to tell you that, I even said that back in my Transformers movie rant video last year, about if Hollywood keeps screwing these franchises of these toys, these popular Hasbro toys and cartoons over, then they need to revert the movie rights back to them. Just like recently with Marvel, after certain movies of their respective characters flopped, they had to revert the movie rights back to them so that way they can fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Except for the Hulk and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. So, you know, therefore, there is a problem with that. So, you know, if this movie flops, movie rights have to be, the movie rights to Jim and the Holograms has to be reverted back to you. And same go for Paramount. If this you know, from what I recall, there's going to be a third G.I. Joe movie coming out, but I haven't heard no full-on words about a third G.I. Joe film being in production or anything. It's just been in silence after I said, I guess maybe the whole world heard me say that G.I. Joe's dead after those last 2 live-action film travesties, so therefore go ahead and sue me, Paramount, sue me, Hasbro, sue me, anyone associated with those movies. And same go for Transformers after saying that Michael Bay killed Transformers with the same shit he's been doing since Revenge of the Fallen or the first movie in '07. So I guess I rest my case and I digress. But just given to the fact, to the recent success of the G.I. Joe and Transformers films, Hasbro rumored to be considered a live-action film with Universal Studios, and with which had a 6th film contract in 2010, or a new incarnation of an animated series of Jem and the Holograms. And ever since 2010, a live-action motion picture adaptation of Jem and the Holograms was announced and would be directed by G.I. Joe Retaliation director John M. Chu himself. The next day, on March the 21st of last year, you revealed that the original Jem writer Christy Marks, also the cartoon and such creator, won't be involved in any part of the film's production, but yes, she is credited, and you know, being credited for being the creator and such and writer of the source material, of the original fucking source material, in response to her not having no part or consultation of the film, because she knew even Christy Marks should be ashamed of you guys for ruining her creation on the original cartoon and stuff. Because she knew your movie version of Jem and the Holograms is about to suck balls once when the whole world sees it, once when the critics sees it, once when casual moviegoers see it, once when fans of the cartoon and such see it. They are all going to come in and see this movie once when it hits theaters this October, just a week before Halloween, and they're going to rip this fucking movie to shreds. Bad enough, we've already got trailers of this thing out right now. And knowing that this film, based on these last 2 trailers, you know this is not going to make the movie any better. It's already a mess. It's more like set in modern times, which is right now the 2010s going on, you know, the 2020s, instead of being back into, like, take the atmosphere of the original cartoon, put it in, you know, take that 80s such atmosphere and put it in this movie. So that way those of the nostalgia, you know, the nostalgia, you know, the people, you know, the nostalgic fans would have all of that nostalgia from their childhoods. Not me. I was a 90s kid who grew up with Power Rangers, Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, such. So you have to do, I mean, if you're going, for the love of God, you guys could have just did this movie right. Get the characters right. Why in the world would you make Jem like a YouTube sensation, like you're making her like that Rebecca Black chick, you know, the one who sang that awful song Friday? That's not who Jem is. Jem wasn't a YouTube sensation, because I can imagine if I were to travel back in time before the years before I was even born, if I were to travel back in time and to the 80s, well, before I was, no, because then I would, you know, erase my current existence. But what if you were to go back in time and imagine if we had internet in the 80s and had YouTube in the 80s and have Jem as a YouTube sensation? But no, YouTube is a 2010s thing. So you cannot integrate what happens here in the 21st century into what was a 1980s cartoon toy property. Because this film has no heart, no soul, and no flavor to the original cartoon, again speaking. It is absolutely wrong for you to make a half-assed Hannah Montana, Lady Gaga, Josie and the Pussycat, Spice World like garbage fest of a film you call Jem and the Holograms. This film should have better off, again, like I said earlier, better off suited as a Josie and the Pussycats 2.0 movie. This should have been better off being a Josie and the Pussycats movie sequel, or a reboot, but with a younger cast. I mean, yeah, you know, you got the chick who played, you know, I mean, you got the chick who plays, you know, Jem in this film, albeit Aubrey Peebles, whatever her fucking name is. And you got her in this thing. We're knowing she just doesn't fit. I mean, look, even albeit Aubrey Peebles was also, albeit I did see her in the movie also saw her in the first Sharknado film, so that's where I caught my attention. As soon as when I heard that Aubrey Peebles was going to be in the Gem and the Holograms movie, and then when I saw her in something else, and even shows like Nashville for like one episode, and then in the and then in movies like Ace Ventura, Jr. Pet Detective, I came to realize, oh, so this is where she come from, huh? That's funny. But why you keep? I mean, why do you want to ruin what made it? What made the original series and the original toys and cartoon worked in the first place? It's like you're erasing what was pre-existed in the original source material, and just making Gem and her rock band like a hipster like rock band where it's all auto-tuned dubstep crap with terrible fake ass pop beats. I mean, you're ruining 80s people, 1980s, former 80s kids as nostalgia factors here. And from the sound of it, it's going to suck hard. It's going to suck worse than the Hannah Montana movie. It's going to suck worse than the Bratz movie. It's definitely going to be worse than the G.I. Joe movies. It's going to be worse than that Justin Bieber Never Say Never movie. It's going to be worse than any of all of those movies out there that I just mentioned in this video. That is going to be worse than cream of the crop of the stinker bottom list. It's going to be worse, and out of all cartoon-based movies, this is going to top the lowest, next to The Last Airbender, next to the Flintstones movies, next to George of the Jungle, next to Mr. Magoo, next to Scooby-Doo. So this is going to suck hard. It's going to suck hard, and I'm not going to keep saying this. It's going to suck worse. It's going to suck worse than any of those other aforementioned animated cartoon turned live action movie adaptations. And you just totally altered the plot of the original cartoon with this modern current day Instagram using, Facebook spending, YouTube sensational hipster crap. Because that's not what the old folks of the original cartoon wants in this movie. It's already right now considered one of the worst cartoon-based flicks right now, even though the film hasn't even came out yet. But in 2 months from now, when this movie does come out, October 23rd, 2015, you're going to know, Hasbro, you're going to know that as soon as when the movie hits the box office and when critics are screened to this film, and when even audiences and fans are going to see the full thing, they are definitely going to rip it to the ground. They're going to rip this movie to the ground. They're going to rip it to the ground. I'm serious. So, just seriously, you guys are not getting any better every year whenever you make movies of your properties. You're not getting any better. You're making them worse. You're making them much worse. If you're going to do a Gem and the Holograms movie, get the characters right. Get the source material back together right. Get everything that made the original cartoon the greatest right. Okay? And same go for Transformers and G.I. Joe and Battleship in them. Get them right for movies. Because Hasbro, this is why I stopped buying toys of G.I. Joe and Transformers, because of the movies you guys have made recently. And I have not bought any further toys of your recent films and of your franchises since. So don't even bother. I mean, why even bother? Why? So enough said, guys. What do you guys thought about Gem and the Holograms movies trailer? What do you guys think of the film overall? I understand a lot of you guys are really felt with so much rage. I mean, you can tell how much rage I have today on this fine sunny Friday night. I mean, Friday, but it's just, I just finally caught on to why the Gem and the Holograms movie is going to be destined to fail, because Hollywood just cannot get this thing right, you know? It just cannot work. It just cannot work. I can just imagine for anyone of the My Little Pony fandom, if they did a live action CG hybrid film of My Little Pony, you know they would do that all wrong and piss all the pony fans out there off. Or if they did a live action Hungry Hungry Hippos movie once again, they would totally get that wrong too. So anyway, thanks for watching my recent movie rant on what I felt about Gem and the Holograms right now by his trailer before I would have seen the movie. But when the movie hits DVD, Blu-ray release and such, when I watch the movie, you know, I actually cringe through it. I will tell you my honest, full thoughts on the movie once it comes out. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section and such. Be sure to subscribe and such. And I'm off for now. Anthony Mars Jr. on PRLostGalaxy2014. Thanks for watching. Thank you and good night. Fuck you, Hasbro. Fuck you, Hollywood.